Hey guys, this is for 4th grade, February 7th, and this is your study guide. So for number 2, on the first page, this question is about finding the value of angle A. You're given that it is a right angle. So the part that you would need to study would be that a right angle, of course, equals 90 degrees. You're also given two different measurements here, a 15 degree and a 20 degree. So of course they would need to add those two angles and then subtract that from the 90 degrees. So the part that they're needing to study is to remember that there's 90 degrees in a right angle, and then that they would need to subtract that. We also have some addition practice and being able to pick out a distributive property multiplication. So with the distributive property, we put on their study guide that it means to hand out. And what they're doing is this is the problem, and they're distributing the 5. So when you look here, we put the 6,573 into expanded form. So we have 6,573, and they have handed out the 5 to each one of those place values. The difference here was that the 50 was not the 5. On this problem, we had a cubanacing. So on the problem here, we have the question, how many grams of ingredients were needed? The answer statement was there were blank grams used. I have a star here because we had a conversion that needed to happen. We were given 1 kilogram, and kilo means 1,000, and that's the part that they will need to study, that a kilo means 1,000. We were also given 195 grams. You can't really see that there on mine, but there is 195 grams, 450 grams, and 670 grams. After this one really didn't have an important word. I'm not really a fan of how many as an important word. I tell them that doesn't really give them some important information. But after they convert the 1 kilogram to 1,000 grams, they would add up the rest of the data, 195, 450, and 670, to get a total of 2,315 grams. And that would be plugged back into their answer statement. But remember, the part that they're studying is that the 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. There's another one of our matrix problems. We're still struggling with that, and I really feel like that it is just simply neatness. You're going to take the 70 times the 10 and make it 700 into the first box. The 2 times the 10 and it becomes 20. The 70 times the 3 becomes 210. The 2 times the 3 becomes 6. Of course, we'll multiply straight across. That becomes 720, sorry. And then 70 times 3 becomes 210. 2 times 3 becomes 6, and that becomes 216. When it's added, it becomes 936. These are added straight down. These are added straight down. On the next page, we have a division problem, so practicing some long division with your child will help. We talked about symmetry, and that symmetry shows equal sides on both sides of the line. We have where we're taking an expanded form and putting it in base 10 or standard form. The problem that happened last week was that they left out one of the place values, and most of the students just went straight with the digits. They took the 6 and say the 7 was missing, and then they put 4, 8, 2, not paying attention to the place values and how the digits had to be put in place value form down here. The next page that we have here, rounding. Surprisingly, we still have some friends that are not paying attention to the rounding. This was a cubanacing problem. It was Ruthie wants to know wants to save 250 quarters. How many quarters does she still need to save? We talked about some of the important words being still need would mean to subtract, and in all would be to add. So we took all of our data that we had here. We combined 21 and 10, which would be something that you could change any of the numbers to. She needed to save 250, so we took a total of 250, subtracted what we had, and came up with that she needed 44. The one down here on the bottom is where you're taking two rays. That's these two here. What we talked about is that you would pick one of the zeros on the number line. This one would be, I'm trying to get that to where you can see it. Pick either of the zeros. On this example that I have here, I picked the 0 on this side. So we pick a 0, follow it to the first ray, and that one shows 60 degrees. And then 100, let me look here, 100 degrees. And so then you would subtract that and it shows 40 degrees. If you look at the yellow one, it's showing that they start at 0 and go up to 80, follow that same number line over to 120, and they subtract that. They also get 40 degrees. But if you're studying that with your child, if you were to draw any sort of protractor and put two rays on it, just remind them that they have to follow the same number line when they're getting those two measurements. They can't drop down and pick a different number line to get the other measurement, and that they do need to subtract. That's something that I talk about. Subtracting with regrouping. This one was factor pairs. We talked about factor pairs are numbers that work together to multiply to get an answer. This one was 500 equals how many tens? And we talked about that would be what times 10 equals 500, and that one would be 50. And of course, you can switch that to anything that you choose. And we were getting an equivalent fraction. 2/12 equals what of one what? And that would be 1/6. And what I call this is a super one. And in this case, it would be 2/12 divided by what equals 1/6 in this case. A lot of them know that I could tell them that they could multiply going back the other direction. So 1 times what would equal 2, and then that would be what times 2 equals 12, and that would give them the 6 there. And of course, you can change that out, take any fraction that would need to be reduced and give them the option to match the denominator or even the numerator, talking about equivalent fractions. I hope this helps whenever you guys go to study. The test is on Thursday, and let me know if you need any help. Thank you.